Hello, everybody. We'll see how long I can stay out here. It's kind of cold, but it is December 20th, so I'm pretty late in filming this. I haven't been filming after I finish each book like I normally do. Things have just been really busy with work and having to move and visiting my boyfriend's family. It's been good for the most part, but I did finish 4 books, which also is a lot less than I read the last couple months. So, I will start by talking to you guys about Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I didn't realize, I knew it was a classic, I knew it had been written a while ago, but I didn't know how long. I think it was written in 1932. I know it wasn't written in the 30s, which I definitely acknowledge that I have this sort of erroneous thinking about books that were written a long time ago, that they're going to be written in a way that is really stuffy and hard to understand. They aren't very aware of deeper topics and that they're very prudish, things like that. And yeah, Brave New World kind of proved me wrong with that. At the same time, I thought that it was going to be, and the reason that I had never read it before was because I thought it was going to be all about sex and just like criticizing any sort of non-traditional sex or relationships, that it was going to be saying, you have to follow this script, and that's the, maybe even with a religious angle. It was not that at all. I mean, I don't know what the author's views are on all that kind of stuff, and there definitely was a lot of talk about sex, but it was very, they didn't actually go into any details. And also, it seemed to me like it was more a symbol for a greater issue that the author wanted to criticize, which was more about consumerism, consumption, and capitalism. So, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, for sure. Brave New World basically takes place in the future, I suppose, and basically there are a few world leaders, but it seems like it's kind of all one world. They all kind of have the same values and laws and things, and the world has sort of reverted to a caste system. And it's not, well, it is what you're born into, but it's really what you're created for. So they have these labs where they're doing like, oh gosh, what is the word for it? Oh, this is terrible. It's not stem cell, it's sort of like test tube babies, I guess, where they are genetically modifying humans to go into these castes, and so no one is born quote unquote naturally anymore. And of course there is a hierarchy. There are people at the very bottom who are literally grown, and things are done to them while they're fetuses to make them less intelligent, or to amplify certain qualities. So definitely getting into that eugenics side of things too, which is also interesting because this was right before or around the beginning of World War II, and that was obviously a big issue, and it's still an issue. So yeah, I don't know. The message, like I said, it was completely different from what I was expecting. We do also get to see there are some reservations that it seems that they are really, from my understanding, what it seemed like was that it was like the Native American tribes were exposed to maybe, well, missionaries and Western or, you know, white European ideas, and then, but they weren't necessarily given a lot of technology, and then they were just kind of left alone and allowed to live in these areas that are deemed too inhospitable for what they keep calling civilized society. And so they don't follow any of these rules. Like, they have their own governments and stuff. They are confined to the reservations. They're not allowed to leave. And so there is, you know, this juxtaposition between the quote-unquote civilized people and the quote-unquote savages, as they call them in the book. It was written in the 30s. There are definitely things that are still problematic about it. I think it follows more of that, like, noble savage idea of, like, oh, but look how wise the native people are, which can also be problematic if done in a sort of dehumanizing way. And I mean, I'm not an expert in all that, but you know, it wasn't as racist as I thought it was going to be, if that's saying anything. I know that sounds like a horrible thing to say. For the most part, I felt like he portrayed them as the same level of thought and intelligence as the quote-unquote civilized people. So there was that. Yeah, the ending was interesting. I don't know, I kind of liked it. So that was Brave New World. So after that, I read Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. I had to look up the authors and then, because it's on my phone. I'm pretty sure those are their names. They are brothers, I believe, and I believe they're from Brazil. The book takes place in Brazil. It's a graphic novel, and it was a little, I think, purposefully confusing and vague. It was not as emotional for me as I had thought / hoped it would be. It wasn't as philosophical. I don't know. I don't think it was for me. I thought it was okay. I can read graphic novels very quickly. I think I read it in maybe an hour or less, so that was nice, but I also didn't feel like I got much out of it. It's kind of about this one dude, and it goes through different periods of his life and times that he may have died or could have died or did die. That's never made clear. And just him dealing with different sorts of existential crises and trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life, and touches on problems with his complicated relationship with his father. So, I don't know. I think it just didn't hit me as hard as I had hoped, but I know that some people got a lot out of it, so might be worth a read. I read that. That was the first book I read, I believe, for the Lightfall Reading Challenge for the Aurelium Reading Challenge. It's something that happens every December around the holidays, and it's just a week long, and none of the books are required, or none of the prompts are required, and it's just kind of like you read at your own pace. Well, I guess it's not a week, I think it's 9 days long, but so we're still in the middle of it as I'm filming this, and it's been fun. It's super cute. There are different shops that you visit, and then you get there's advent doors that the creator made, and yeah, it's been cute. And then I read a book for the book club that I have kept missing. I keep missing in Carlsbad. This time I didn't go because I thought maybe I was getting sick. I don't think I was, but I didn't end up going. But I did read the book, and it was the first book club book that I've actually enjoyed. It's called The Surgeon by Leslie Wolfe, and it is sort of a mystery thriller. There are 2 points of view. One is this woman who is a surgeon. Sorry, it's telling me my storage space is running out. She's a surgeon, and she is a heart surgeon, and for the first time ever, someone dies on her table, but then she kind of feels like she let it happen because it was a, well, you don't find out why exactly, but she found out who it was, and there's some sort of dark past with him. And then the other point of view is this woman who is an attorney, and she's like really high up, like about to get this promotion to be the state attorney or something, and she becomes obsessed with getting this surgeon arrested for murder, even though she was never accused of murder. And yeah, that one, I think I liked it a lot until the very end, like the last page even. I was just like, seems a little, I don't know, I don't like how it was sort of a cliffhanger. I mean, there's kind of an allusion to what is going to happen, but I don't think there's going to be a second book, so I didn't really like that. I didn't really like how one of the characters sort of acted at the very end, but overall, it was a good time, and it was nice to have a book that I actually enjoyed for the book club. And I used it as another prompt for Lightfall, which was for the sort of, there's like a sort of spooky, eerie, maybe like bad magic shop, and the prompt was to read a book that would give you chills. And the most recent book that I just finished is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I had never actually read The Martian, which he also wrote, and he's written a couple other books as well, but The Martian was made into a movie, and I watched it, and I did enjoy it. And I just had always heard good things about him. I remember I had read a couple pages of The Martian, and I thought it was funny, and people kept raving about Project Hail Mary, and so I thought I would try it, even though I don't usually read a lot of sci-fi. And I actually did enjoy it. There were definitely parts where I was really bored, and bits of science jargon, especially space jargon, that I didn't really understand. I was trying not to skip and trying to actually understand it and think about it as well as I was able. But yeah, for the most part, and I think the ending made it all worth it. The ending was perfect. It made me feel so warm and happy inside. It definitely took a turn that I didn't expect, and I think, I don't know if knowing it would have made me read it more or want to read it more or less, so I kind of wish that I could tell y'all about it, but it doesn't really happen until at least a third of the way through the book, if not halfway, so I don't think I can. But basically, this man wakes up on a spaceship, and he has no memory of why he's there, or how he got there, or even who he is. Slowly his memory comes back to him, and so there's the chapters where the sections where he's on the ship figuring this out, and then there are the sections that jump back in the past, and those are sort of his memories, and fortunately they're chronological. So the flashback chapters were actually, I think at first I found them more interesting, but then, like I said, around the middle part, that was where I found them sort of boring. There's a lot of politics, which isn't really my thing, and yeah, what else can I tell you about this book? I think you find out pretty quickly that he is trying to save Earth. And so he's being sent to this planet really, really, really far away, and he had to be put into a coma to make it go by faster for him, because it was like years of travel. Gosh, I don't know, there's a character that is so sweet and cute, and it was unexpected, and there's talk about language, which obviously I love, or I think I've mentioned it before, I love linguistics, and so talk about understanding a language, figuring out how to communicate, cultural differences, and gosh, I wish I could say more than that, but I would definitely recommend if you're into sci-fi at all. So yeah, that was Project Hail Mary, and I think they are making it into a movie in 2026, I saw. We'll see if that happens, but that's as far as I know. Hey y'all, we got a change of scenery today. I am in front of the library and they have it all decked out for Christmas. Excuse me. But I wanted to tell y'all, and sorry if you can hear the rushing water, there's a little fountain. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah. Last night I finished Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, and I liked it okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. Definitely got more interesting at the end when things started picking up. The thing that I love the most about this book, and you gotta bear with me. I don't mean this in any negative way, but both of the characters, both of the main characters, because there is a romance in here, so the two people that end up falling for each other are canonically ugly. Like, the female protagonist is constantly talking about how ugly the male protagonist is, and like other people in the town talk about it, and then she says that she herself is unattractive. And the reason that I liked it is because I feel like, obviously, you know, beauty is subjective, but every book where there's a romance, I feel like the two characters are hot. Even if one character's like, oh, I'm unattractive, like everyone thinks that she's attractive. So it was just a nice change of pace that they were both like considered unconventionally or conventionally unattractive, but they still fell for each other because it was more about the emotional bond they had and all that. So, but anyway, the book is about this woman who lives in a small town in Kentucky that is really run down and poor because for centuries it's been owned by, or not owned, but basically run by these coal plant people. And, you know, as coal has become less popular over the years, there have been fewer jobs, but also the coal mining has sort of wrecked the town environmentally. The air is hard to breathe, the water is questionable, and this girl is living in a motel with her 16-year-old brother. She's 26, so she's been raising him since their mom died when she was 15, and they are dirt poor, and she's kind of gotten by she has a job, but also, you know, obviously it's not enough, because she's also trying to send her brother out of the town and get him accepted to a boarding school that's really nice, and so she's trying to save up for that, so she kind of steals and cons people sometimes. She ends up, through a series of events, getting hired as a housekeeper at Starling House, which is also sort of, it's this giant manor in the woods, and there are all these rumors about it. The inhabitants never really show themselves around town, and people think that it's bad business, bad news. There's rumors about cults and witchcraft and all sorts of stuff. But she's been having these weird dreams about the house, and she starts working there and starts to uncover more mysteries. So, yeah, I thought that it was interesting enough. It seemed like a unique enough story, especially because also, like, most of the characters, most of the people in the town that she interacts with really suck. Like, they're just not good people. I don't know. I know it's more complicated than that, but they always turn a blind eye to things. Like, they turned a blind eye to her and her brother struggling, except for two people in her life. And even those two people, like, one of them is definitely sort of, I mean, I think more of like a grumpy kind of character, but definitely kind of morally gray, and the main character is morally gray. And I also liked that it wasn't trying to sugarcoat things, it wasn't trying to show all these perfect characters. Yeah, I don't know, it talked a lot about a person's relationship with where they are from, where they grew up, which I found very relatable, being from Texas, from a town that I hate, so and try never to return to. But yeah, that was Starling House, and that one fulfilled another prompt for Lightfall, which was Aurora colors on the cover. And I think that one was for the Wallace's Wonderful Winter Wanimals. But yeah, so today's the last day of Lightfall. I may or may not finish another book. I found a really short one. We'll see. We'll see what happens today. So I'm taking a bit of a walk because I felt like I needed to just get out and get moving. But I wanted to let you guys know that I will not be adding any more books to my Lightfall completed list. 4 is going to be the grand total for this year because I tried to read another book and I just can't do it. It's called Across the Greengrass Fields by Seanan McGuire, and I've read 5 other books by them, I believe, which is part of the Wayward Children series. It has a really interesting premise, and there were definitely things that I didn't like as much, but I thought that they were interesting enough and also short enough. Most of these books, not all of them, are, I want to say, less than 200 pages. Very, very, very short. And they center around, well, so there's not one character that they focus on in each book. They focus on a lot of different characters, but a lot of times the book will have, there will be a book dedicated to one character's story, basically. And the series takes place in this world where if you think about fairy tales where there's a child that ends up in another world, like Wonderland or Neverland or something like that, these books tell the story of what happened to them, how they got there, the adventures they went on. But then some of the books talk about what happened after they came back. And there are children that come back and wish that they hadn't left those other worlds because those other worlds felt like they were made for them and they felt like they could be themselves there. And there are children that are so happy to be back because the other worlds were terrible. I think most of the kids in these books, kids and teenagers, are ones that wish that they could go back to those worlds, and they're just kind of waiting for this door. It's always some sort of door that they went through. And they're waiting for it to come back so that they can return and escape Earth, basically. So yeah, they're in the adult section, even though they're super short. And they definitely do have some darker topics in some of them. There's also really interesting discussion of different sexualities and identities, which is really cool. They're very diverse, in my opinion. Basically, this one, Across the Greengrass Fields, I just didn't like the tone. It just felt really cheesy to me. The main character, and I read a third of it, so I don't even know if I read 50 pages. It was audiobook, but I don't know, it just felt like a really cheesy story, and maybe it got darker, but I couldn't. When they're doing talking unicorn, or the unicorns didn't talk, but like talking centaurs and everything's like, oh, we're so happy you're here, like we can't wait to bring you to our ruler who's like the most magical being. And I don't know, I'm sure there was some sort of foreshadowing of things aren't going to be what they seem, but it just was too saccharine for me, so I'm not going to finish that, and I don't know that I will finish the series, unfortunately. That might be it for me, because I was getting less interested in them over time, I think, and like I said, one of the main reasons I was reading them is just because they were so short. So that is actually it for December. I'm really surprised that December ended up having so many fewer books in it than November. I mean, I had like a really productive reading month, I guess, but honestly, it's not a bad thing. The goal, of course, of reading is to enjoy what you're reading and find books that you enjoy. And so I think this month especially, there was just a lot going on. We had 2 trips, visiting my boyfriend's family and visiting my family. I got sick, my boyfriend got sick, there was a lot going on with our house and everything, so, you know, extenuating circumstances. And also, I think one of my like bookish New Year's resolutions for next year is going to be to not focus on reading as quickly. Obviously, if it happens naturally, that happens. I kind of get in the zone sometimes and, don't even realize that I'm reading. But I have noticed this past year, especially, that I have started sort of skimming over certain maybe scene descriptions, things like that, especially for a really exciting scene. And I want to slow down and really start to appreciate the author's prose more and also take in the imagery more. I feel like that will lead to a more all-encompassing experience for me. So it isn't the worst thing that I only read a few books this month. So that is it for 2024, and I'll see y'all in 2025.